in hindsight, of course, things like that, and this is the first lesson, I think, if something like that happens, something so dramatic, so either it's a diagnosis with an illness or someone dies, that these are usually the main reasons why someone is taking a good look at their life and
Yes.
reprioritize life and think about, what am I doing here? Why do I work 7 days a week, have no lunch break, and work 12 hours a day? And that's exactly what I did. And I think, unfortunately, something like that needs to happen for people to do that, like I said.
Right.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where we aim to inspire, empower our listeners to live their best audacious lives ever. I'm thrilled to have you join me today, and I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to be here with us. You know, when I think of a sculptor who shapes a block of marble into a masterpiece, we have the power to mold our lives into the audacious vision we dream of. Each chisel strike or each brushstroke represents the decisions we make and the actions we take in pursuit of our boldest ambitions. In today's episode, we have the incredible Christine Michaelis sharing her story of transformation and resilience, her journey from a misdiagnosis scare to reprioritizing her life and finding happiness serves as a powerful example of embracing change and pursuing personal growth. Hey, Christine, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's awesome for you to spend the time like this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation.
This is great. I am as well. I'm always appreciative of individuals spending time and engaging in some really powerful conversations and really how individuals can live their best audacious lives and knowing so well that we all have our individual journeys and our stories to where that gets us to the place that we are. It's fantastic we're able to share them, and maybe as a starting point, knowing that you focus a lot on sort of life prioritization and your own personal happiness and the things that bring us joy. Perhaps as a starting point, you could start off with sort of sharing your story with us.
Yes, I can do that. Thank you. Hello, everyone who's listening. Thank you. I'm Christine, like Audley said, and originally from Germany, but lived all over the world, but let's say in Europe. And I have worked in design agencies before I actually, more than a decade ago, started my own entrepreneurial journey. Always call myself the accidental entrepreneur because I never wanted to have my own business, but now I wouldn't want to go back. Absolutely love it. And basically, I'm working with entrepreneurs. And part of having your own business can be that we get stressed quite often because we have too much to do. And part of the entrepreneur journey as well is that we often don't even realize when we start burning out and working too much because we love what we do. We want to have an impact, and for us it's like it's not work, but it is work. So I've learned that, and I think everyone should be aware of that even right from the start and have that work-life balance that they deserve. So I'm a big believer in separating the business from the personal life.
Yes.
I'm saying all of this because since I'm 19, I have tinnitus, so that ringing in my ears. And I did lots of stuff back then, every therapy that was out there that could maybe help with that, which didn't. And basically 20 years later, whilst I was living in the UK, I thought maybe there's something that can help now, because 20 years in, they've done so much more research. And so the doctor said they're going to do a scan of my head. And I was like, okay, I don't like scans, but okay, because I'm a bit claustrophobic. And he said 2 weeks later when he had the results, oh, the good news, there's nothing wrong with your ears, but you have a brain tumor. And I was like, what? And he said it in that like cheerful voice. And I'm like, what are you saying? And then, I mean, I was in a non-native speaking country for me, let's say in England. However,
Yes.
I would say also in Germany, probably I would have not understood everything he was saying, because he was throwing terminology at me that I didn't understand. And he then said, but I can't even give you more info because it's not my expertise. I was like, okay. Went home confused and Googled what it is that I have,
Right.
which you should never do, because even if you just have a blocked nose,
Right.
it tells you that you're dying. And that's what it was saying.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Dr. Google.
Yes. Thank you.
So really, really, really. Anyway, so that was pretty shocking diagnosis.
Right.
I'm a person who's very good in putting things away and try not to think about stuff and just get on with life,
Right.
which is what I did. But obviously it shook my system. It was a time that was really difficult anyway, and I was close to a burnout because I was working too much, and there were health issues in my family and other things. So that ringing in my ear was also very loud because it's all stress related. And so for 2 or 3 months, I think it was about 3 months, and lots of tests and scans and stuff like that, they actually said, oh, it's not a brain tumor. Just forget about what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, to forget things.
Right.
In hindsight, of course, things like that, and this is the first lesson, I think, if something like that happens, something so dramatic, so either it's a diagnosis with an illness or someone dies, that these are usually the main reasons why someone is taking a good look at their life and
Yes.
reprioritize life and think about, what am I doing here? Why do I work 7 days a week, have no lunch break, and work 12 hours a day? And that's exactly what I did. And I think, unfortunately, something like that needs to happen for people to do that, like I said.
Right.
In hindsight, I think it's good, everything that happened, and I feel like the luckiest person alive that it wasn't a brain tumor.
Right.
And it led me to reprioritize my life and to really actively start my search for happiness, and also getting more into spirituality. And that's basically, in a nutshell, what happened and why I changed my life from
Right.
in like 360 degrees.
So thank you for sharing. What I find really interesting about your story is, we oftentimes, and even myself, I'm thinking, if I love what I'm doing and I'm passionate about it, I'm excited about it, you feel like you can do it forever, and you don't feel like you're working, and you don't feel
Exactly.
the stress. You feel, you feel good most of the time, right? And I've always thought that being a good thing. So it's really interesting that there's this new perspective that's added to it, that even, too much of the things that you love can have an impact on you.
For sure. And one thing also to understand is that stress is not always bad. Stress pushes us into action, we get things done, and it gives us this adrenaline push that we sometimes need. But if that gets too much, too often, that's when
Right.
we can't cope anymore. And that's when we start burning out. And if we're talking about real burnouts, clinical burnouts, it's really hard to bounce back, if at all. So I was lucky in this case that this happened, because it made me put my foot on the brakes and say, okay, wait, let's revisit what I'm doing here. Because for sure I would have gone into clinical burnout if I would have continued the way I did.
Yeah, no, I certainly can see that. And at the time, so at the time that you were doing this, were you happy? Did you enjoy it? What were you feeling at that time?
I was happy, but it started to be too much. So I could feel that I
Okay.
was stressed. So, what you were saying, that we are stressed, but it's on a level where we still feel good and we love what we do. And I did love what I was doing, and still do. However, it started to be too much and to feel like work and to feel like too much work, because I wasn't able to switch off. I wasn't able
Right.
to stop worrying about certain things. Also because from my personality type, I'm this doer and the high achiever. So for me, doing nothing is really difficult, and still is. And
Yes.
what I mean by that is even just sitting on the couch and watching a movie is difficult for me if I don't do something else in addition, what makes me feel productive. I'm learning that still, and I have a partner, thank God, who's good at that and reminding me, okay, we will just watch the movie now. You don't have to, I don't know, knit a scarf. Okay, it can be also beautiful things, but or if I talk to my mom on the phone, I have to put away the laundry because I don't sit down. And that obviously takes away the focus of one thing because you can't give 100% focus to
Right.
two things.
Yeah.
That's not, you can't.
Well, it's taking away from being present in the moment, right? And I think there's times
Exactly.
where you can be doing something, and if you're not present, you're taking away from the moment. You're not enjoying it. You're not fully appreciating it. If it's something that you're doing with other people, they're isolated because you're somewhere else. So I think there's a lot to be said about just really remaining focused.
Yes, completely. And actually, when looking back now, and maybe some advice for people who might also have tinnitus, I on purpose don't use suffer from, because I don't suffer from it. You just accept that it's there. But it's surely stress related and gets louder or quieter, or even sometimes disappears completely. And I manage that through mindfulness. So exactly what you say, being present in the moment, meditation, single tasking rather than multitasking, because all of this takes away lots of things. And these are all things that actually go into what makes us happy and creating happiness in our life. So that's what I've learned. And really, I manage that condition, let's call it, with mindfulness.
Got you. So, and it's interesting because you look at the multitasking as an example, right? It's something that everyone does. Everyone they're juggling different things. We've got these little computers in our hands that let us do 20 different things at once if we want, if we want to, and I think what happens is that people sort of accept that's just what life is. And they rob themselves of all sorts of the moments that we just talked about.
Yes, for sure. And we can see, and that's all connected also with that attention spans go down so dramatically. Also for me, I'm not taking myself out of there, but we can see the younger generations even more so because they grew up with mobile phones and apps and things like that. I grew up without a mobile phone, without internet. Yeah, I knew all the phone numbers in my head.
That's right.
Even just remembering things is so difficult because first of all, there's so much information that's pushed out and loaded onto you. But there's also so much you want to take in, and everything out there is just created to grab your attention immediately and then drop immediately and move on to the next thing. It's really difficult, and I think it's one of the things that I would like to in the future for myself as well, to increase again, to increase that ability to not be on that. And I purposefully are not on specific social media. I switched off all my notifications on my phone because they're there to make you go into those apps. And apps, talking about TikTok, for example, are created to keep you there. And I, on purpose, do not use it. I have not installed it. I've never seen it. And that's fine. I know it works also for business and stuff like this, can work for some. But it's difficult. It's really a difficult world we live in when it comes down to that, and also to real connections. Now with artificial intelligence and everything, it's going to go even worse or better. There's two sides of everything. But I can see that the decrease of attention span and the decrease of memory and everything also in myself, unfortunately, also because I get older, but a lot to do with technology.
No, I think you raised some really valid points just in terms of, where things are. Again, I wasn't raised off of a cell phone and have a computer in my pocket, when I went to school, but now kids do. So the landscape has changed vastly, and the manner in which we integrate or interact with these devices also has changed and become more and more of a necessity and a need as opposed to a nice thing to have. So I do appreciate that. I want to just go back to the I guess so it's a misdiagnosis that you had a brain tumor. it forced you to reprioritize, although it was a misdiagnosis. So, on one hand, you can say, well, at least something positive came out of that. But while you were going through this period of I've got a brain tumor, I've got a brain tumor, I've got a brain tumor, what's happening next? And, Dr. Google told you your life was over. What was going on for you at that time? Like, how did you navigate that?
By ignoring it. Really, really by ignoring it. By talking about it to my best friend, not to my family, I have to say, because I did not want to worry them. I did tell them that there was something that needs to be investigated, but not what I was thinking what is going on. Mainly ignoring it and keeping me busy. So on the one hand, I tried to get away from being busy. On the other hand, I, in that moment, appreciated that it took my focus away from that.
Right.
Lots of crying as well, of course. Going to the gym, so really tiring my mind and my body to then also being able to fall asleep. So that was the initial reaction. And then it started to unwind a bit, and I started to make slowly changes, because if you live like that life that everything is too much and you're working 7 days and you don't take a lunch break, you can't just say, okay, now I work 4 hours a day and just Monday
Right.
to Wednesday. It doesn't work.
That's a huge shift, right?
Yeah, so that's not happening overnight. So that's neither happening in your mind, nor is the workload actually and managing things in the right way. But
Yeah.
what I did do was I said, okay, I'm going to take my weekend. I'm not going to work on a weekend. I established a mindfulness day on a weekend where I told everyone that I knew, today I'm not reachable. I switched off all electronic devices,
Right.
and I did only things that I wanted to do in a mindful way that day. That doesn't have to be yoga and meditation and things, which it usually included. Maybe it was a long walk. Maybe I went for a run, but without having any outside stimulus, let's say, from technology or social media or anything. That is so resetting. And I said, okay, I'm going to have a lunchtime away from the screen, because obviously I was eating, but in front of a screen answering emails. So now then I implemented that. So step by step, and that took a long time. So we're talking months here as well, to establish really boundaries that I have to keep myself, because I set them to myself. Also telling other people the boundaries, and then establishing the working hours, and then enjoying things outside of work, creating new hobbies, doing things and good stuff.
Those are all important, and that sort of very much feeds into the reprioritizing, because that's what it made you do. It made you reprioritize life. Is that kind of what the process of reprioritization looks like?
Yes, for me it was like that, and for other people it can be as well. So doing smaller things, doing a bit less and doing a bit less. I started asking myself, what happens if I don't do that? The one question you just have to ask yourself: what happens if I don't do that? If you don't go on social media, so for personal reasons, but especially in business, what happens if I don't post every day?
Right.
What happens if I don't publish a blog post every week? What happens if I don't do this? What happens if I don't attend this one event that is going to be outside of my working hours, because it's maybe somewhere online in the other part of the world?
Yes.
If the answer is nothing's going to happen if you don't do that, you probably can put that on your not to-do list. So I'm still a massive fan of to-do lists and today lists,
right.
but also a not to-do list. So think about that. It's always good to start thinking about what don't you want and what don't you have to do, and then you can start from there and doing it step by step.
I love that approach. I do some coaching work myself, and it's a very similar question that I'll ask clients. I'm like, hey, so if this didn't happen, so if you didn't do this, what would happen? But then you take it a step further and say, okay, so if you didn't do this, And so what's the worst case scenario that happens out of it? And then the next level is, okay, so then what would you do if that was the case? So what you now done is you built a plan in place in terms of, okay, so if I didn't do this is the worst case scenario that happens, but here's how I would address it. Right. And it really it already has you thinking ahead in that future sort of state of mind of thinking that, okay, this happens, here's how I'll deal with it. And so I think that when you can sort of probe and ask yourself, those types of questions and force yourself to think, well, what will happen? I think that's a really good approach.
And I think if we're talking about, everyone says, oh, living my best life, you need to live your best life. What does that mean? I mean, we all have a limited amount of time in this life that we're in at the moment. Right. Depending on what you believe, you might be reborn. Maybe you wake up in another universe. Maybe there's parallel universe already. Who knows? Whatever you want to believe in. But this, where you are now, is limited time for everyone. We will not live forever. For some people longer, for some people less. And we should enjoy as much as we can. I'm not saying you should enjoy every moment, because it's not possible. There is not nice moments in life. There is things that are happening that will shake you up. People die around you. Unfortunately, that's all part of life. But we can think about okay, how can I maybe put different priorities and maybe different weights on things that are happening.
Yes.
So we had a little short conversation before we started recording, where I said I was freaking out today because the software thing didn't work today.
Right.
And I got really angry, and I had such a negative energy boost that I really wanted to punch something. Yeah. In the end, if you then think, okay, but you consciously need to think, then it's really, really difficult. You need to think, okay, but how important is this really at the moment? And it doesn't mean that things that happen to you are not important, because there's always something worse happening in the world. Yeah, we can always say, oh, but there's a war going on there, and I'm lucky that we don't have one here. I'm not talking about that, because I don't want to say that your problems that you have or make up yourself are not important. They are obviously important to you, but just giving different kind of weights to things that happen to you can really help living your best life that you can actually do, and living life to the fullest and enjoy things that you're doing.
Yeah, I do like the idea of slowing things down, almost pausing in some respects, because it certainly allows for that appreciation that we talked about of what's happening and being in the moment. But it also, it was that expression, speed kills, right? Like speed, you're always going. There's going to be some adverse impacts as a result of the speed. So I do like the idea of just taking your time, pacing things out, and just slowing down.
Yes, and a lot of times, if it's an issue that speeds you up to emotionally or also doing things, maybe that issue resolves itself, just leaving it there for a moment. So if you can't find a solution immediately, take a break, do something else. I had that actually also with that issue. I then took a break. My partner said, let's eat. And I was like, okay, let's eat. We ate. I came back. I had another idea and I solved it. But you need this distance. And this is where it comes in, that you have to separate your personal life from your business life, because it will give you that fresh look on things and space in your brain to do other things as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that a lot. You then, and you sort of touched on a few moments ago with respect to our happiness, because you then shifted your work into to helping people understand or focus on their happiness. What was that process like for you when you when you moved in that direction?
Interesting, because I actively started looking into things, because there's lots already out there. Of course, there's so many studies, so many happiness models, books. I even became a certified happiness facilitator. So I went on a course and did stuff and wrote things and did a test and stuff like that. It really was a formal thing, but
nice.
That was lovely. And I read every book that I could get my hands on that dealt with that topic. So that was obviously a few years going into that, part of that actually of that training to become a happiness facilitator was to come up with your own framework.
Okay.
Which is very good, because that's when I came up with something, and then I didn't do a lot with that because I still wanted to deepen and understand the science behind it as well. And my approach for myself, and always for everything I do and what I've written and when I work with people, is very action focused. So what can you do? What can you actually do? So not just, oh, it's some theory, but
just talk about it, right? Just not something to talk about, but actually what action can be taken.
Yes, exactly. And asking questions so that people need to answer in that moment. So also in my book that I wrote about that, for example, it's like an integrated workbook. It's not a separate thing. You read, and then there's a question and there's space for you to write. And you're like, so you actually go through the process. And that's what I started. And it was very interesting to read a lot of things. And I'm also, I'm a dreamer, but also I'm an analytical person and a doer, like I said. So I wanted to have something that I can easily follow for myself. That's usually how it works for me. I want to develop something that helps me, that I know then will help others as well. And that's when I started coming up with this framework, and I started putting things in with everything that I've read and everything that I've learned, and explaining, and some science behind it, and studies and definitions and questions, and something that you can go through. So it was really good. I really enjoyed that, and it helped me a lot already.
Gotcha.
But it's an ongoing thing, it's not like you go through that and it's done. Because life changes, priorities change, values change, things outside change.
We grow, we learn, we develop, our experiences help shape us. And so things do change. I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
So that led to the happiness formula then. I want to talk about that.
Yes. That's exactly. So the happiness formula, that framework I developed, became a book, and probably becomes also other things afterwards. Who knows? Published in multiple languages as well, not in all, but obviously I'm German, so it's published in German, it's published in English, and I'm currently working and almost finished with the Italian version, because that's where I'm based, and I just think I want to create those for my parents to be able to read it, as well as my other family, let's say my Italian family, be able to read it. So just like that. And it's basically an acronym that I came up with, which is SMILE. So SMILE is obviously very, very suitable. That's the word I was looking for. And it stands for start your journey, make sure you're ready, implant happiness into your brain, learn about the models, and engage with the tools. Now, some of these are easy to understand, but I just give like 1-2 explanations. So start your journey is all about understanding happiness. So official definitions, understanding what it means to you, because there are official definitions, the difference between joy and happiness, the difference between pleasure and happiness, and things like that. Make sure you're ready. It's all about the mindset, because too often in life we sabotage ourselves because of trauma that we had, because of other things, of thinking patterns, of values that we have. So we manipulate ourselves to not actually be happy. Also talking about a bit of neuroscience there. Implant happiness into your brain is all about the science behind it and the biology, what's actually happening in a chemical way, because you can look at it as in a non-romantic way, let's say, in a scientific way. Learning about the models. So I didn't want to ignore what's already out there, what people came up with. So I'm explaining a bit more about those. And then it's basically the last thing, engage with the tools, where I go through, here are actually some tools, some meditations, some apps, some things that you can use to and implement to become a happier person.
And so start your journey. That's the S. M is
make sure you're ready.
Make sure you're ready. Implant happiness. Learn about the model. Into your brain. That's important.
Yes. And then learn about the models and engage with the tools.
Yes. And I think the part where I like what jumps out at me really, it's showing it's a process, right? It's a step-by-step process.
Yes.
and I think processes are good because it helps people sort of remember and stay on track as to where they go. So and so at the end, then when you smile, the end result is more, you understand happiness better. Is that fair to
You
say?
understand happiness better, and you understand what it means to you, and you can start implementing things into your life to get to a higher happiness level. Because happiness is not like joy, just to quickly go into that. So joy is like a fleeting emotion that you have that's usually attached to a moment that's happening,
Right.
often also shared with others, or something that we achieved, or we finished school, or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
But happiness is like an underlying state of being, because you can have a bad day and not be super smiley and
Right.
not joyful, but you can be still a happy person. And this is what everyone, I think, is striving to achieve, to have this underlying happiness, and sometimes also a smiley face, that they can then bring that also to other people. So there's really practical things, and also the science behind it, what actually works, what makes us happy, what doesn't make us happy. Already understanding that is already a step towards happiness, and then you start implementing it. So for example, one thing is doing things with others and being kind to others, but also doing things with others is something that feeds our happiness level. Let's say happy or meta. Would you say that? Happy meter? I don't know. That goes up.
Yeah.
And if you are someone who likes to be by yourself at home, maybe force yourself to do something with other people, let's say, and try that out, and you will see how that gives you energy and things like that. So it's really little things that you can do. Switch off notifications from social media and don't go on there so much, and all these things.
Sure. No, I love that, and I do love the point just around the happiness, and so thank you. I appreciate you identifying. Happiness is a state of being, right? It doesn't, and so which means it's you can experience, you can be happy and experience things that may affect and bring it down, but it does not make you not a happy person, right? So that making that distinction between joy and happiness is an important one. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, exactly.
So something that brings you joy is your work with entrepreneurs. So you and so let's put this in, when you sort of in context with your story. You've done this reprioritization, a bit of refocusing, and now you're working with startups and entrepreneurs, helping them get to that better place.
Yes, amongst other things. So because starting out on your entrepreneurial journey is very overwhelming. Can be a lonely journey, doesn't have to be, but it's for sure overwhelming because everyone has the expertise, but all of a sudden you have to think in a business mind. You have to think about marketing, you have to think about paying taxes, doing accounting, all these things. So basically that's one part I'm helping with. Another one is the marketing bit. So that's my background. And people said, oh, but you have all this expertise, so you can help us with that. So I added that. And then the third pillar is the health and well-being bit, to really start thinking right from the beginning, okay, how can I establish boundaries? How can I establish a work-life balance, as they say, right from the beginning? Because I think in that industry, let's call it the startup entrepreneurs industry, whatever you want to call it, it's seen as a positive to hustle and to work a lot. People seem to be proud, and it's just the norm.
Right.
I disagree with that.
It's a badge of honor, right? It's a badge of honor.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor. I work 14 days, 14 hours a day. It's not good. And it means that you took on too much work, or that you're not working efficient enough, or that you prioritize in wrong ways.
I would look at productivity as an example. If you're working that many hours a day, why? Like, what's happening?
Exactly. And that's also one of the things I'm helping with. And another book I wrote, I'm a bit obsessed with book writing, but that's one thing, to be more productive. And if we're talking about that, just 1 second, people always want to be more productive to get more things done. I think also there, I would like to take a different approach and say, get more productive to get the things done quicker that you have to do, and take back more free time. Okay, because people have that, okay, I feel that void. I feel that hour that I might be able to do less. So let's say you work 12 hours a day. Oh, now I'm so efficient. I work 10 hours. I can find other things to do now to fill up these 2 hours again. No, you continue improving to go to 8, to 5, whatever you want to do. That's should be the approach of why you want to become productive, actually.
Right, right. And it's funny, there's a natural tendency to fill up more time, right? As opposed to how do you reduce it more and be more productive. And you know, I know we talked earlier about, you know, the age that we're in terms of technology, but perhaps, you know, using technology that works for you to make you more productive as opposed to being kind of a slave to it, right? So use the other way around.
Exactly.
Right. So
that's exactly what I always say. Make use of technology, don't get used by it.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, it's so clear that, and I really appreciate, first off, Christina, really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate your story about, you know, how this misdiagnosis, you know, led to all sorts of wonderful things and forced you to change, get better, be more productive, be more happier. And it's clear that's done that. But the piece I really love is you're now using what you've learned and you're helping to assist other people. So that's fantastic. And I appreciate you doing that. Love the fact that you're here, Christina. Thank you. I think it's a wonderful story. For our listeners that wanted to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Best to go to creativestartupacademy.com. So it's all one word, sent without hyphens or anything. So creativestartupacademy.com. I'm most active on LinkedIn. You find all of that also on the website.
Awesome.
All the other social medias, I'm not very active.
Well, what we'll do is we'll make sure that that the appropriate links are captured in the show notes. If individuals want to connect with you, they certainly can do so. And so again, thank you, Christine, for being here. This has been a phenomenal time, and I really appreciate it. Congratulations on all the great stuff you're doing.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for listening.
Back we are here on the podcast, and you know, Christine's story reminds us that life's challenges can be the catalyst for positive change. It's in those moments of adversity that we have the opportunity to reassess our priorities, seek happiness, and embark on a journey of self-discovery. By acknowledging the importance of mental well-being, setting boundaries, and striving for productivity with purpose, we can pave the way towards living our best audacious lives. Thank you for tuning into the Audacious Living Podcast. Remember, each day is a canvas waiting to be painted with audacious strokes of passion, purpose, and joy. Let's embrace the challenges, savor the victories, and continue striving to live a life that resonates with audacity. Stay bold, stay audacious, and until next time, we'll see you.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.